Hello, everyone. Wendy Myers here from live to110.com. You can also check out my detox program at mineralpower.com. Today, we are talking to Dr. BJ Hardick on the dangers of mercury toxicity, how to detox mercury, all about chelators. Should you be detoxing if you have mercury fillings? Why you need to detox your kids, and so much more. This is going to be a very, very interesting and important podcast. Dr. BJ Hardick, he is hosting, or one of the hosts of the Detox Project that you can check out, and right up our alley. I know myself and all the listeners, you love detoxification as much as I do and realize its importance. And so this summit that is happening September 26th to October 3rd is extremely important. I highly recommend that you guys go check it out. You're going to learn all kinds of interesting things. Like, an interesting mercury detox fact is we don't only get it from fish. We don't only get mercury from mercury fillings. We also get it from crematoriums. A lot of you guys are living in cities and there are crematoriums burning bodies that are full of mercury from fish and mercury fillings that gets into the air, and then you breathe it in. So that's why you don't, even if you don't eat fish, if you don't have mercury fillings, you can still be breathing it in the air. Mercury toxicity is the number one toxicity. So you really need to be aware of it, because chances are you have it and it is causing fatigue or may cause some health issue down the road. So listen up. This podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or health condition and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Please keep in mind that this podcast is solely informational in nature and is for entertainment purposes only. So please consult your healthcare practitioner before engaging in anything that we suggest today on the show. Right now, you can go listen to my free medicinal supplement summit. Go there and register, and you'll immediately get an email to start listening to the 50 speakers and experts, the world's leading health and nutrition experts, talking about proper supplementation, the latest in testing to test your body for the supplements that you need that are right for you, the best supplements for different health conditions, the top supplements in depth. There's so much interesting information, and it's an incredible resource, because when I first started learning about health, I spent so much money on supplements, and I was just taking everything and thought I was getting super, super healthy. But I didn't really feel quite right. I was taking a lot of things and it wasn't improving my health how I thought it should be for the amount of work and the money that I was spending. So I wanted to create this amazing online resource to help guide you on what are the proper supplements that you need for your body, and take all that guesswork, and so that you can save money and take the exact supplements you need for you. It's kind of like the sniper approach to supplementation, as opposed to the shotgun approach, or just taking everything inside, or just taking a multivitamin. And we talk about topics like food-based versus synthetic supplements. So interesting. Go check it out at medicinalsupplementsummit.com. It's happening September 12th to the 19th. Our guest is Dr. BJ Hardick. He has dedicated his life to maximizing the health and human potential of his community. His Center for Maximized Living in London, Ontario, is one of the largest healthcare clinics of its kind in North America. In Dr. Hardick's seminars and care for patients, he teaches and implements the principles of maximized living, which he has championed his entire life. In 2012, Dr. Hardick served as a contributing author for Maximized Living's newest bestseller, The Cancer Killers, The Cause is the Cure. He is a member of the advisory board for greenmedinfo.com, the world's most widely referenced natural health database, and that's SARG's website. Dr. Hardick's mission through his practice, seminars, and outreach is to help as many people as possible achieve the optimum levels of physical, mental, and spiritual health and happiness, which are their birthright. You can visit him at drhardick.com, drhardick.com. BJ, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hey, I'm thrilled to be here. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. So tell us a little about yourself and how you got into health.
Oh man, so I was born into a holistic family. My father's a chiropractor, my uncle is a chiropractor. I was named after the world's most famous chiropractor, so no pressure there. I actually started working in my father's office when I was 14, and I really just was doing it for a part-time job. And of course I show up in his clinic when I was 14 years old, and at that time he had one of the busiest chiropractic clinics in all of Canada. And I meet. I mean, I'm going in basically 2 nights a week, and I start meeting and seeing all of these patients who first off say, "Oh, I imagine you're here to learn the ropes." That was the first thing that everybody asks. So for a good year, I said, "No, no, no. I'm really just here because I need some money after school," which at this point I was 14 or 15, and then after a year of seeing people get well from things they were told could never be, conditions that could never be reversed, people, throwing away their drugs, throwing away their canes, kids with allergies whose allergies would go away, kids with constipation and asthma, and all senior citizens that were on walkers that would come into the clinic that were told that they were going to be on these things forever, literally throw these things away. Really was when I said, wait a second, this is an environment that I want to be in for the rest of my life. So my father for many years encouraged me to look at other fields, and he actually, a lot of people don't believe this because a lot of people think that there has to be this giant separation between conventional medicine and not and integrative medicine. But my father actually really, really encouraged me to look at other fields within conventional medicine. He said, "Hey, listen, I love that you work. I love that you love working here. But hey, we need great surgeons for traumas. We need great specialists in certain fields." And he basically was saying that there were many other great parts of conventional or allopathic care. You should look into those things. But at the end of the day, the underlying philosophy in our world, which is that the body is self-healing, it's self-regulating, the body can heal itself provided there is no interference. That's what really had me hooked. So I was always really grounded by more of the philosophy of self-healing, which of course leads you to scientific ventures and learning that this is actually anchored in the science. And then you have the beautiful art form, which is all of the methods that are used by all these different holistic and integrative practitioners. So that's how it started. And probably by about 15 or 16, I was hooked. And then by 17, I started doing, consulting and counseling for other clinics, and I would go in to do trainings with their office staffs, and help them see how we would run our office and help them educate patients. And now I look back and I think, like, who hired this 17-year-old kid to go in and coach their clinic? But it was a lot of fun. That's like all my summers, when I was taking sciences, all my summer vacations, I would go in and I would consult for different clinics and, help hire staff, because to me, it was always about creating bonds with people that were exploring betterments in their health. And, when you can have great relationships, great communication, that's the first step in ensuring that people's eyes can be opened to the world that you and I know, but a lot of people don't. So that's how I, took the step from living just a natural lifestyle to actually working in natural healthcare.
Yeah, so you're hosting the upcoming Detox Project, and I spoke in that about toxic metals that cause fatigue, and you have this unbelievable lineup: Dr. Mercola, Joseph Mercola, and Suzanne Summers, and Mike Adams, and all these amazing people. Tell us about that.
Well, I will say I am thrilled that we certainly have some people joining us on the Detox Project that I think it would be fair to say may not accept a lot of interviews. Certainly Suzanne Summers gets a lot of requests for interviews, but I did put out a request to her. She has certainly done a lot of other interviews on natural health, but maybe not as many in the online summit space. But this topic is just very important to her. She wrote a book called Toxic. It's toxic, from toxic to not sick. So putting out a request to her, I mean, she instantly jumped over the ability to speak to our audience about detoxification and really the science that is showing that environmental toxins are linked to cancers and neurodegenerative diseases, and that people need to wake up to this. So I mean, her interview was incredible. We joked about the fact that She historically was known as America's dumbest blonde. And she laughs about that. She's self-proclaimed, by the way. So there was nothing sexist when I said, hey, you used to be this dumb blonde. She knows that she was known in the 80s as the dumb blonde. Yeah. And she's really made this incredible transformation after being diagnosed with breast cancer, and then looking at what the allopathic recommendations were to her, which included a lot of toxic stuff that she didn't want to do. And she researched it hard. And then sure enough, she goes on this journey and, beats it holistically. She goes on and writes Knockout, where she interviews all these holistic and integrative doctors all around the world that are beating cancer without chemotherapy, without radiation. And then her newest book, Toxic, she interviews all the leading doctors that deal with detox, So she's really, really completely on the side of people that are looking for really, really longevity and wellness. And I think that, we joked a little bit about the Thigh Master and things like that. That was just a little trailer joke, because she does use the Thigh Master.
Still.
She used it, and apparently you can use it under your armpit as well too. So it's like an arm master. She joked about it, and she's sure that it works. She sold a lot of those things. But at the end of the day, her message is your body was designed to be well. This idea that you're supposed to just shrivel up and that you're supposed to get weaker and weaker over time really is a myth. We've been led to believe a lie. Your body's designed to thrive for 100 years, or in your case, 110. Mm-hmm. That your body's designed to thrive like a candle. I mean, the candle should burn very brightly all the way to the bottom. And when it's time to go out, go out. But don't have a withering candle that's halfway on and halfway off for 30 or 40 years. And that's what most of America is living with. So, Suzanne Summers is on the interview. The doctor, Dr. Pompa, who really was the person who helped identify the severe mercury toxicity in me. We have 2 interviews with him. He helped both me and then one of my co-hosts, Dr. Jay Davidson. My mercury was 6 times greater than the acceptable limit, which to me is infinitely more acceptable, because the acceptable limit to me should be 0. Through his help, he cut my mercury by 90%. This is going back about 10 years ago. He's on, we have Mike Adams talking about the dangers and the hazards of fluoride. And then we've also got all these other incredible people that not only talk about detoxification protocols and answering questions about some of these things you hear you can do. So we hear about supplements. Obviously your event that is going on probably this week that this is coming on about, getting to the root of what supplements do, who needs what supplements and what is a quality supplement. Well, same thing when it comes to detoxification. I think it's almost a little bit of a myth out there that people can detox. We have some scientific discussion on what supplements work, what foods work, what other therapies like infrared sauna, and how does it work? So it's very, very empowering for people to say, wait a second, this can work, understand the science behind it, and then also how to test. So somebody, obviously, whenever I teach a seminar and I show what my mercury levels used to be, people say, how do I get that test done? Because I think that is obviously very valuable for somebody to see their mercury levels come down. So really, it's all about going through, first of all, day 1 on the summit is really, truly identifying that toxicity is real. Sayer G, who's my good friend from Green Med Info, I still call him the world's smartest person. And he pulls out studies like you wouldn't believe, and he understands them and he knows them. I mean, he's really on day 1 showing just how it is that these small doses of chemicals can be major endocrine disruptors. I think in conventional medicine, we always hear the argument, well, you know what? It's not a lot of toxin. It's not a lot of chemical dose, so you don't need to worry. And Sayer just destroys that with the science, showing that, wait a second, a small dose is indeed a problem. And then getting into, where are we picking these things up, both from the environment, then we have you talking about, the heavy metals, which goes a little bit beyond some of the everyday food colorings and things that people are concerned. I mean, you and Dr. J talk about some of the real toxic stuff that should never get into people's bodies. And then we get into solutions, which is really, really the most important thing, because we want people to be able to leave with a plan so that they can know what they can do on their own. And if they need to work with a holistic doctor to help themselves detox, what to look for.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's so important. I'm actually kind of jealous because I want to do my own detox summit too, but maybe in a couple of years, I want to do my own.
Me, you, and Suzanne Summers.
Yes. Suzanne, yes.
This can be your detox encore.
Exactly. So today we're going to talk about mercury toxicity.
Sure.
So where do we get mercury, and what exactly does that do to our bodies?
So mercury, and really most, if not all, heavy metals, I don't need to tell you this, they are neurotoxins. The Department of Medicine at the University of Alberta, right here in Canada, demonstrated years ago that mercury, when it is brought close to neural tissue, that it basically causes neural tissue to shrivel up and die. So when I think about the nervous system, and this is really why, as a chiropractor, I always looked at the importance of keeping a healthy nervous system, which is my brain, my spinal cord, and then every nerve running my organs. We chase different organs. We try to find what's wrong with the thyroid, what's wrong with the gallbladder, what's wrong with the kidney, what's wrong with the adrenals. Well, you know what? The nervous system runs all of those things. So if I have damage to neural tissue, now from a chiropractic perspective, somebody injures their neck, it can create physical stress on the nervous system tissue. Even if somebody with bad posture, when their neck is a result of using a phone for years or playing piano or a whiplash injury, when somebody's posture gets screwed up, there's plenty of evidence showing that it actually causes decay of that neural tissue because the spinal alignment reverses. So you can physically interfere with the nervous system, but mercury, it's a neurotoxin. And again, depending on whose ranking that you look at, mercury always comes in as second or third of the most toxic substance in the world. And if it's ever behind any substance, it comes behind radioactive plutonium. But radioactive plutonium isn't in people's silver fillings, and it's not in the fish that they're eating every single day. Frankly, and this is exposed on the Detox Project. I think conventional medicine would like people to think that there's absolutely no thimerosal, no mercury whatsoever in any vaccinations whatsoever, but you can look at the box on a flu shot vaccine and it shows that it does contain thimerosal, which is a mercury derivative. So my mission has never been to tell somebody, and if I can clear this up, I was raised in a holistic family. My family always took holistic options, but I've never told somebody, you should or should not take a drug, you should or should not take a vaccination, you should or should not have a flu shot. In fact, most of the people that I would see, they've made some choices that they like and they've made some choices that they don't like, but deep down, it always comes back to that principle that your body is self-healing, it is self-regulating. The most important thing we can do is look at the choices you can make now to best enable your body to heal in the future. And a lot of that, because of this accumulated toxicity, comes to detox. Now, as bad as all the environmental pollutants are, when mercury is that high on the list, according to the EPA and a lot of the other organizations, mercury does deserve its own consideration. And that's where, I wrote an ebook that is available on my website called Real Detox. And I like to look at detoxification in terms of, your basic detoxification, and then you have more advanced detoxification, and then you really do have heavy metal detoxification. So we certainly look at, things that everyone can do through diet for basic detox. And we recognize that the body has this inborn ability to detoxify, because I believe that when God created the body, God put a liver there and God put a colon and all your other organs, recognizing that there still could be, coal from a fire, or there could be fungal toxins from mushrooms, right? But now the problem that we have now is we have all these man-made chemicals which go far beyond the chemicals that we might pick up naturally in nature. So there is advanced levels of detoxification when we look at certain types of supplements. But then you really have to get into heavy metal detoxification. And mercury is so poisonous when it gets bound up in neural tissue. There's a lot of studies showing that, mercury gets bound up in the mitochondria of cells, and it can get bound up in the brain cells as well. What I certainly saw, because I ate very well growing up through my lifetime, and I took a lot of vitamins, is I still had mercury that was way off the chart. So my mercury was, like I said, 6 times greater than what was considered the acceptable limit on the test. And I thought I was doing pretty good, and I was the kid that actually, what's interesting, and this is why I really don't even feel like I'm part of the vaccine argument, because I didn't have all the vaccinations when I was a kid. My parents were not into that. And it was okay to not be into that back in the 1970s. So the first thing is people see my mercury levels and they say, oh my gosh, do you have amalgam fillings? Did you have flu shots every single year of your life? Do you absolutely love and devour fish every day? And the answer to all of those questions was no. I in fact, based on when I looked at my mom's tests, now my mom, she was more from the heavy metal generation, which included, leaded paint and leaded gas. And there was even mercury-based paint years ago. So her levels of, mercury and lead and thallium and nickel, they very much mirrored mine. So I believe that my high levels of mercury I did get as a result of it coming across the placenta. We now know that there's studies showing that mercury can cross the placenta, and that the levels of mercury in the baby's body are directly proportional to the number of silver fillings in the mom's mouth. And then we also know that it crosses through breast milk as well. So a lot of parents that I speak with and people that come to our seminars, they flip out and say, wait a second, are you telling me that I'm going to have to detox my kid at some point? And I say, yes. Historically, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, I don't know how many hundreds of years ago, but historically we would not have had to do this. But as a result of industrialization, you look at even, these coal-fired plants. We know that there's environmental release of mercury in Texas, where the communities with increased rates of autism are directly proportional to the increased rates of emissions in the environment from coal-fired plants. So again, these might not be kids that have silver fillings or injections or this or that, but there can be this environmental toxicity. So it is a major concern. And I guess, because I've seen such great changes in my own health since I went through that process of first identifying my levels and then really taking a year and a half and making sure my diet was solid, making sure that I was eating foods that would, help to liberate toxins out of my body, and then, not only liberate them from different organs, but then liberate them and expel them completely. But also taking all the right supplements and working with the right doctors, and then retesting as well. When I saw my health improve, naturally you want to make sure other people can go down that path. So as horrible as it was when I was dealing with what could have been diagnosed as IBS, or what could have been diagnosed as chronic fatigue, or all these other names that we give symptoms of an underlying cause of a problem. As bad as those years were, it really put me through a couple years of understanding, just how dangerous it is living in North America now. We have a very, very polluted world. And of course, I've seen kids that have come into my seminars and through our programs that have done everything right, where the families were, living organically, and kids still go out and they get tested and they still have super, super high levels of these environmental toxins. I don't even love the word toxin, because I feel like some people in the allopathic world, they throw down the word toxin as if it's no big deal. And people say, well, anything can be toxic if you have too much of it. I preferred to use the word, noxious chemicals, these man-made chemicals that are made in manufacturing plants that really were either meant to be, bound up in the core of the earth, but never meant to be in our bodies. So that's me and mercury. And, now 10 years later, my mercury was cut by 90%, but I still live in a part of the world. I mean, I'm in the auto belt up here. I'm kind of close to Detroit, Michigan. For me to think that there's no pollution, or that I wouldn't, go on vacation and maybe have some fish that was polluted with mercury, that I might not have re-exposure other ways, I'd be very foolish.
Yes, and I totally identify with you talking about how you got your toxins from your mother, because I test lots of mothers and their children, and they have very similar toxicities. And same with my daughter. My daughter inherited my toxicities, and she lived very healthy. I made all her food; it was all organic. She was breast milk fed and whatnot, and she had a lot of toxicities, namely aluminum, that prompted her to get an autism diagnosis at one point. And we detoxed all that, and she's functioning very, very well today. But a lot of kids today are really not doing well because of the toxicities they got from their parents.
It's amazing. You look at those tests, which would look at 17 toxic metals identified in the urine. And, you look at probably your daughters compared to yours, just the way you looked at my test compared to my mom's. And again, whatever's high is high in the parent. Whatever's low is low in the parent. And again, that is not exclusively the environment, because we often don't see the same thing in the father. We see it in the mother, and baby comes out of the mother. And of course, my house when I was growing up as a kid didn't have mercury in it. Now, it is true my parents played with mercury. It was called quicksilver. It was actually called, the German name was Quacksalber. I don't know if you knew that or not, yeah. But that was the derivation behind that. And anyway, my parents used to play with this stuff. It was this magical thing that it could go from being a gas to a liquid, and used to play with it in chemistry class. never when they were thinking about that stuff, because it could go from gas to liquid, could also be inhaled. So that was obviously one of the, one of the sources where it gets handed down. So, I've seen, and of course, Deanna Minnick on the Detox Project, she gets into some of the scientific studies showing that, to back up what I've always learned, is that something like lead would take 4 generations to dissipate on its own. So certainly, even if I never added lead to my body or my kids' bodies or their kids' bodies, that which gets passed down through moms is still a problem for at least 4 generations. And that we've seen actually in animal studies and so forth. Deanna gets into that in the Detox Project as well. So, there's a real urgency that, this is where I now see detox something that you want to do on a perpetual basis. I believe that people should look at a daily detox to some degree. Then they almost want to look at like a weekly detox. That's why a lot of people will, they'll do like a fast once a week or just juice for a day a week. I think it's different for all people. And then I believe that, quarterly, and then even more so annually, there are more massive detoxes that people can do. People say, how often should you detox? Well, first of all, it needs to become one of your values that, we live in a part of the world where, I'm still going to go into the odd bathroom and use their gross soap, or I'm still, going to go out to dinner and get maybe chicken that had antibiotics or something, so I'm still, listen, even in my clinic, when I see clients, I'm going to inhale perfumes and hairsprays from hundreds of people, so I'm not immune to it. So I do believe in, detoxifying on a daily basis. And again, there we're talking about, supplements and greens and phytonutrients and Epsom salt baths. And then, you look at your more weekly things that you can do where you can give the body a rest and you can fast and, do infrared saunas, which, go so much deeper than a traditional sauna. And again, Robbie Besner's interview on the Detox Project is amazing, talking about infrared saunas, because they work. Now, hey, I would love to live in an environment where I didn't have to go in the infrared sauna, but guess what? I have to go in the infrared sauna as a result of, and I like North America. I like to have a computer right here, and I like the modernization of the world, but we're paying a price for it. So as long as we're aware of that, we can all do real well. We can't change that environment, but we can be smart about how we live in it.
So what are some of the things that you did and the supplements that you took to clear the mercury out of your body, and what kind of results did you get?
Well, back then, and I know a lot has changed as a result of FDA regulations, but back then, DMSA and DMPS were available not via prescription. So these are chelators, chelating agents. And your audience follows you and you speak this language all the time, but let me just kind of summarize it for maybe anybody who might be listening new. Chelation, I think the word derivation of that is that it actually refers to a claw. So the word chelation is talking about the claw of a crab, from what I understand. And, it's basically saying, wait a second, these aren't just nutrients that get into your body, but these are actually chelating agents that have an ability based on their sulfhydryl groups, which is their SH groups. That's why sulfur is so important as far as detox is concerned, that can actually bind and trap the noxious chemicals, keep them, and then bring them out through the body, whether it's through the urine, through the sweat, through a bowel movement, basically any of the ways toxins can get in, food, water, air, they can also get out. So basically I looked at chelating agents back then, and still to this day, although I believe the regulation now, I'm in Canada, it may be different in the United States. Generally speaking, DMSA, DMPS, EDTA, you look at these basically by prescription. So today, if I was going to look at DMSA or DMPS, which can have a slightly different sulfhydryl structure, I would work with a naturopath in my area. Some of it might be recommended orally. Sometimes it's recommended through intravenous chelation. And you know what? I think there's a place for both. I know that when I was doing oral chelation, we knew that the half-life of DMSA was only 4 hours. So the problem is, half of the chelating agent would be metabolized within 4 hours. So I would go on these 4-day sprints of doing DMSA every 4 hours so that I would keep that level of DMSA strong and high in my body that would come out through my urine because it was water soluble. And then the same thing with DMPS, so DMPS having an 8-hour half-life. That meant I'd take DMPS before bed. When I'd wake up 8 hours later, have to take it again, because if some people if they don't do this stuff under supervision, you got to realize when you start, chelating toxins in your body, if they get re-liberated back into the body, or they get you retox your body. Jonathan Landsman, I think it's him on the Detox Project, who talks about playing like musical chairs of toxins, where literally you're liberating them and moving them around your system. People can go berserk. They can have serious problems if they start detoxifying, but don't really enable their body to get rid of everything more permanently. So I would do these 4-day sprints with oral chelators. Now, certainly if somebody's working with a naturopath or an integrative medical practitioner who can do this type of thing and do more of an IV chelation, they certainly do. It's not a 4-day sprint. It's like a 1-hour super sprint where you're literally having an IV administration under more supervision. But, I never did IV chelation, but the folks that I have had do it, they need to rest for a couple days after that, because it is quite, powerful and on your system. When your body goes through a major episode like that, it's a stressor and your body needs to rest. So you look at just how busy we all are right now, and people really need to rest and make time for their health. So those are a lot of the things that I had done. But the other things when we talk about these chelating agents, there's EDTA, which is very safe, but again, I believe via prescription only. A lot of people will use those in a suppository form. I've worked with moms whose kids have had, severe attention issues, autism spectrum diagnostics, and they've done EDT-chelation. And to me, the most important thing is this, that they can measure those levels go down over time. There should be no guesswork with this. So by all means, if somebody gets a provoked urine test, meaning they're not just peeing in a jar and seeing what the levels are, because a lot of these toxins, they get bound up in the tissue, and you can't just look at somebody's urine and say you're toxic or not. You have to take a special type of urine sample where you actually take some of this stuff to provoke it, to agitate the toxins and see what comes out. When you compare apples to apples and you see those levels come down, classically alongside, you're always going to see that the person is doing better. So that's what I went through. I also did a ton of activated charcoal back then, because, one great thing about activated charcoal, it really is a toxin magnet. And, really, if somebody has to go to not our type of detox, but they have to go to like the hospital detox because they drink too much on Memorial Day. If somebody goes in hammered or they've done a drug overdose, literally in the emergency room, they load them with activated charcoal. That's your breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the detox, because it is known that has an affinity for chemicals, and it will soak it all up like a sponge. So when I would be doing a lot of this stuff, I was doing a ton of activated charcoal. Bentonite clay has a very similar property as well, where it has this adsorbency, so that it would bind these things and then pull it, more permanently out of the body. And again, these are carbon-based materials, and activated charcoal or super activated charcoal, other than just carbon or charcoal, it's really, when it's blasted with oxygen, you can really increase the surface area of it. So not all charcoals are the same. I used to do scoops and scoops of activated charcoal. My whole mouth would be black. It would go in black and come out black as well too. And I did major. I would probably do about 8 scoops of it per day back then. But now you can get it in capsules as well. So it does stay in the alimentary canal. It's very safe that way. So those are some of the key supplements and regimens that I followed. And the reason why I think it's so important to talk about this is because a lot of people do a lot of the right things, which includes juicing, which includes fiber, which includes healthy fats. But this, Wendy, when you and I start talking about IV chelation and EDTA and DMSA and DMPS and activated charcoal and bentonite clay, people say, what? A lot of people don't realize that this is a major piece to getting this stuff out. And that's, in my opinion, why we see so many people who have followed organic diets. They've taken whole food supplements. They've done a lot of the right things, but they can still end up with toxicity levels, because there really is an art form to getting that stuff out of the body. And that's where the practitioner comes in, and that's where I think it's very important that people do the everyday basic things that make sense. But then, when they realize there's an issue, you got to work with somebody who understands you, who they can then be a healthcare provider and a coach at the same time.
Yeah, this was my case too. I reached a point in my life, I was eating perfect, organic, fresh from the farmer's market, making my own food. I was exercising, I was sleeping, I was taking the right supplements. I'm like, why do I feel like crap?
Yeah.
And this is a lot of people today, a lot of, a lot of my clients, they're doing everything right, and they still are sick, and they still don't feel good, or they have major issues sleeping or adrenal fatigue. And it's because that last missing piece of the puzzle is detoxification.
I certainly agree. I always talk about a model of, 5 core essentials to being well. And I do believe that it starts in the mind, because people do recognize that if the mind is not well, if when you're stressed, when you don't get enough sleep, when there's worry, when there's anxiety, that'll make you sick. Everyone agrees that the mindset has to be healthy and at peace. The next thing, though, is, obviously, as a chiropractor, I recognize that even when your brain is putting out good positive energy to the rest of the body, when there's trouble in the spine, that's the structure of the nervous system, which then controls function everywhere else. So we not only want to ensure that the mind is healthy, that someone has, a good attitude, lots of healthy sleep, healthy nutrients for the brain, but that, we don't want to see damage to the structure of the spine, either in a global level or even on a microscopic level, because that will interfere with the expression of the nervous system from the brain and through the spinal cord to the rest of the body. So, 2 pieces to me still come from, health from the inside out. Life starting in the brain. It's the only organ that has any output, has got to get through the spinal cord to the rest of the body. And then the next 2 things, everybody talks about eating right and exercise. Well, to me, that's like number 3 and number 4. You got to make sure that your structure is healthy first, because life does start from within the nervous system. And then you got to look at what you're fueling it with, which are the right nutrients, which obviously is, we could do a whole talk on diet and nutrition and being, non-inflammatory and getting in the right nutrients and all the essential amino acids and essential fats that people need. And then exercise. Really, at the end of the day, exercise is all about one ingredient, one nutrient, which is oxygen, that people are becoming deprived of. And that's why, people go to detox, and there's a lot of, great things that can be done with oxygenation and ozone and everything else too, to make sure that you're actually really, clearing the body by getting oxygen back. And a lot of us were just deoxygenated. But then also and if somebody's dehydrated, they're deoxygenated, because oxygen's part of hydration, but then also, lean muscle mass. It's pretty clear that the more lean muscle that somebody has relative to body fat, I have yet to see a study that they're anything but less likely to beat off every single disease known to mankind. So to me, it's never been about, having a 12-year-old with abs. This has always been about, make sure the more lean muscle you have, the better you are able to fight off every disease. But to me, you got to take care of the nervous system first, the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. Then eating right and exercise are 3 and 4. Number 5, which is detoxification, I wish it didn't have to exist. I really wish it didn't have to exist. But there are, I think the latest number that we saw was 84,000 approved chemicals for the use in food and personal products that could be in somebody's household. So we do not test these things in conjunction with each other. The only way a chemical is barred from use in the home or in a personal care product or in a food as a food additive is if it happens to show an immediate food allergy or an immediate topical reaction or an immediate death or complication or something on its own in the trials. And the trials aren't always the most extensive, and you know this. But what's not tested is what happens when there is an accumulated toxicity, when all of these chemicals now are used when they're used synergistically. There's a lot of concern about, synergistic heavy metals, so now you get somebody with lead and mercury. Is it possible that that's worse than just lead on its own or mercury on its own? I believe the answer is yes, and the science shows that as well. So you have this synergy of chemicals being used together, and you look at personal care products, and you look at foods, and you look at home cleaning products. Just literally walk down the aisle at the grocery store where they sell Tide and Clorox and all these things, and somebody could have put a blindfold on my face, and I would know when I'm in that aisle because of the smell. It's in these airtight bottles. How toxic is it when you can smell it going down the aisle when these bottles are supposed to be airtight? There's some really great environmental scientists that are, going into homes, and they're looking at the the pollutants, the pollutant particles in the air. And a lot of people are using so many of these sprays and chemicals in their homes that their air is just dirty. And, the home is more airtight than ever before. So in Canada, thanks for reminding me that you live in California, but I live in Canada. But here, in the winter, we want the homes as warm as they can be. And then in the summer, we need them as cool as they can be, because we go from humid to freezing. So the more airtight the home is, the less air exchange there is. Certainly, my grandfather lived in San Diego, California, and the doors were open year round. So and the outdoor air, actually, as dirty as it can be out there in Southern California, it can be not nearly as bad as the indoor air in many homes and schools and work buildings. So therefore, we got to have that air exchange and not have it in the home. And of course, we also don't look at the long-term effects of these things. I mean, even Anderson Cooper from CNN, and CNN is, about as mainstream as it comes. I mean, he went and they looked at all the body burden tests of kids that were showing up levels of, flame retardants and EDTA and plastics and PBDEs and all these things showing up in the little bodies of little kids because they're so close to the surface, and all of their toys are made with plastic and garbage, and they chew on their toys and the remote controls, and kids are that's who I'm most concerned about, because their levels show up being even higher. I was in a seminar not long ago showing that the blood-brain barrier doesn't fully form until age 7. So those are the most precious years to make sure that there are no chemicals getting in a little kid's body. And they're already up against a lot, never mind stuffing them with food that is loaded with, red 47 and blue 29 and yellow and all these different additives that, again, the conventional world would love to say is no problem because they're in such small doses. Well, go on the Detox Project and you'll see why it is that the small dose is actually worse.
Yeah, and then a lot of the kids are still getting mercury fillings, and their mothers had mercury fillings. So let's talk about that. You discuss a lot in your free ebook about mercury fillings. And can you detox, if you have a bunch of mercury fillings in your mouth, is it safe to detox if you have mercury fillings? I get that question a lot.
I think it's a great question, and there's a couple ways to look at it. The first thing is we have to recognize that there are many life practices that contribute to detoxification. So let's first recognize that exercise will activate the body's systems and better enable the body to detox on its own. You and I know that often the criticism from the conventional world about detox is that we have bowel movements and we go to the bathroom so that we're detoxing all the time. Well, most people's livers are totally taxed, so we're not really detoxing all the time. But again, where I agree there is the body is designed to detoxify on its own. However, when we're overloaded and the demands exceed the body's ability to do it, that's when there's a problem. So if somebody is exercising, or if somebody is getting healthy amounts of UV sunshine, or somebody is consuming phytonutrients that contain, like cilantro and parsley, for instance, these things that would actually be very, very beneficial to liver function, you know what? That's going to stimulate some detoxification. So, to suggest that somebody's not going to have parsley or cilantro and they have silver fillings, or that they might not exercise, they might not go in the sun, is just foolish. The everyday basic levels of detoxification in those practices, I think everyone can and should do. And even some supplements. So for instance, every day, I do take a liposomal glutathione. Now there's 3 ways to increase your levels of glutathione, which is your body's master antioxidant that really helps to push toxins out of cells. There's 3 ways to do that. David Jockers speaks about that on the Detox Project in a really, really great interview. But I take a liposomal glutathione every single day, because there is wasting of glutathione in your lifetime after the age of 35. However, it gets even worse because it gets run down by heavy metals. So glutathione's already going to go down, but it goes down even more the more toxic you get. So take glutathione. I would take glutathione every day, and I'm certainly going to do things like fiber or bentonite clay or activated charcoal. And certainly other foods and vitamins that's going to help basically detoxify the cells of my body, but maybe not what I would consider a full heavy metal detox. so I would do those things on every day because that's safe enough to do, because these are gentle detoxifiers. And again, when you think about a bucket, it's always filling up with environmental chemicals. The goal is to keep that as unfilled as possible, because the big problem is when the bucket overflows. So I would want to be gently detoxing on an everyday basis. And you're thinking about, kidney, gallbladder, liver, all these things. However, what I have generally seen in like the holistic dentistry world, what I've also generally seen in a lot of the worlds where, practitioners are doing things like IV chelation, is they have cautioned against chelation when people have mercury fillings still embedded in their jaw. Frankly, we've seen some people go crazy when they've done it. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be done, but it better be done under supervision. Because again, when we talk about chelation, the claw of the crab, this is like a magnet, so if there's still heavy metals that are bound right into your body, I personally have always advocated for an approach where if there are silver fillings, they would be best getting those removed first before they start then looking at chelation. But it doesn't mean that you can't necessarily do, gentle detoxifiers each and every day. It doesn't mean that you can't go in a sauna. Doesn't mean that you can't go in an Epsom salts bath. Doesn't mean you can't juice, But really, I think the positions on that in the holistic world are probably split right now. I think most of the practitioners that I have interviewed over this, they have said that they would prefer to see someone have their amalgam fillings removed first. However, I certainly have interviewed a number of holistic dentists and IV administering naturopathic doctors who have said, listen, if somebody doesn't remove all their amalgam fillings, there is a time and a place to still look at IV chelation, but you better supervise to see how the person does. And again, after that chelation is done, they often need to be doing a lot of charcoal, a lot of bentonite clay to make sure that if there's any toxins that are liberated, that it doesn't go right back to the brain. Like the jaw is here, the brain is there, and this is a neurotoxin. So that's why, again, doing it under supervision is so important. And again, it's not just what you're doing during the detox, but it's the couple days after as well. So I hope that answers your question. I know what I would prefer to see happen. But certainly, I think anything that people can do to lower the toxic bucket is wise. And I also think too, people can make changes day in and day out with the little stuff. First off, I remember, my old roommate from college, came to my house, this house that I'm in right now, when I was only a few years into professional practice, and I had all these little bags of oatmeal, and she looked on the bag and she says, "Why do you get all these bags of oatmeal with all this extra crap in it?" And she said, "Why don't you just buy the oatmeal and, put your own stuff in it, put your own honey in it, and put your own berries." And I thought, yeah, I guess I could do that, but just out of convenience, I had stuff with a bunch of preservatives and I never gave it any thought. And so to me, it was so intuitive. That's when I went down this journey to become like an ingredient detective. So those are some of the first things that people can do. However, for people that are still dealing with health challenges, you should not just be saying, well, I no longer have baggies of oatmeal. I eat quality oatmeal from the farmer's market. There still can be deeper toxicities. And don't give up on the principle that the body is designed to be self-healing and self-regulating. Remove the interference. Let your body heal itself. To me, that's the underlying, really chiropractically driven philosophy that keeps us all going.
Yeah, I mean, because these metals, they interfere in our body's metabolic function. So you just remove those, and a lot of weird symptoms and health issues and disease labels just go away. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So what are some of the mistakes that people make when they're attempting to detox? A lot of people just try to do stuff on their own, and they're hesitant to work with a practitioner, maybe because of the expense.
I know.
But what are some things that people should definitely be avoiding?
Well, let's go through a few. I'm sure that I could probably go on Amazon, or I could probably go online and probably buy some chelating agents on their own and just start taking them. And for instance, you look at some of these chelating agents that do have a half-life. If I was doing something like DMSA orally and I was doing it, once a day or every couple of days, or taking it with lunch one day and dinner the next day, and not doing it on a schedule, well, there's one major mistake, because obviously this stuff has to be done on a pretty strict schedule. One of the other mistakes that people can do too is if they want to look at removing their amalgam fillings, listen, goal number one is not going and just getting your amalgam fillings removed. Goal number one is making sure that the gut is cleared. Because if you have a dam in the river, there can be a major problem. When people go to get their amalgam fillings removed, even if they're being removed properly, there can be some leaching of mercury. Now, people say, well, how do I get my amalgam fillings removed? Because I do consider that to be detoxing. Getting amalgams out the safe way is detoxing. You don't just pull the filling out. I mean, literally, the dentist has to drill it down and suck it all out. So there can be some leaching, whether the dentist used a rubber dam or other procedures or not. So, oftentimes people go in and they're very, very sick. Their liver and their gallbladder are, bound up and, not clearing well. Their kidneys aren't strong. Their gut is not strong. They've got blocks there. So, one of the worst things is, just going out and get your fillings taken out without taking care of the whole gut first. I mean, that's vital. But then getting them not removed the proper way, that's a major issue too. So the dentist with whom I work, he has a specially designed apparatus. So his drill is actually cased in like a little house for the tooth, so that his drill goes in there, and this is a suction cup house, so that anything that is being drilled down gets sucked back right away instead of having two instruments, a drill and then a separate suction cup. And he's shown examples on models of drilling down mercury. And, when he doesn't use the right instruments, there's a lot more leaching. So that's one major incident there. I think with juicing, frankly, I love a good greens juice, and I'm always careful to not get ones that have too much sugar in them. So I'm really, greens and vegetable juice based. Juicing can be good, but juicing, if somebody is quite ill, juicing can also really mess someone up. A few years ago when I was still on this journey, I remember being out there, of course, in California, so here I am, Canadian guy showing up in California for a week. I remember really overdoing it on juices over a couple of days. I'm not joking, I probably had 10 or 15 juices over a couple of days. And I thought this is great. I'm juicing, I'm detoxing. And I mean, I was a mess. Now, I benefited from getting all those phytonutrients in. It destroyed the rest of my vacation, though, because I didn't allow my body to gently detox. So, sometimes, rushing into these things a little too fast are not the wisest things to do. My preference, if somebody's going to look at more of an everyday detox, like we have a 7-day cleanse, I call it, on my website. And, it definitely does include one daily juice. But then it also includes a raw salad and one cooked plant-based meal, that it's not juice exclusively. Even if somebody is going to juice, one of the other issues that people can do there where they make a lot of mistake is they do a lot of fruit, because our taste buds are so sensitized to sugar. And, Dr. Joel Fuhrman put the list together of the best superfoods that we have. And we know that it all starts with vegetables, kale, collard greens, bok choy, they're all at the top. Red peppers, you go down the list. The most nutrient dense fruit that we have is a strawberry, which is actually very low in sugar. So if somebody wants to be juicing, you should be starting with those, green foods that actually provide more nutrients and not as much sugar. It's funny. I have a visitor right now who was diagnosed with leukemia a couple years ago. And we went to go get a smoothie today. And again, it contained the whole food, so this whole food, he got a kale smoothie with chia seeds and a homemade unsweetened almond milk. And everybody behind the counter was saying, like, are you going to like the taste of that? But he's been doing this for so long. He loves the taste of it, but his taste buds are no longer addicted to sugar, and also his cancer is in remission. So, take your pick, which you want. So, definitely, if we're going to be juicing, we got to make sure we're doing it not with a bunch of high sugar fruits. Listen, I can't believe the amount of grams of pure sugar that is in a juice when you start adding in Granny Smith apples. People think, well, let me just throw in a little bit of an apple. Well, no, listen, I've added up the content. I mean, I've seen juices for sale that have 56 grams of sugar, but there's no fiber in that juice. There's no fat, there's no protein to, buffer the impact of that sugar content. So I do believe that if fruits were meant to be consumed exclusively in juice form, that God would have put a faucet on the fruits, and there's no tap on it. You should be getting the whole food. I'm more of a whole foodist. I really believe in consuming whole foods, except for hot sauce. That's one processed food that I'll take any day of the week.
Well, I have a question that I like to ask all of my guests.
Sure.
What do you think is the most pressing health issue in the world today?
I really think that the most pressing health issue comes down to a misunderstanding of the body's great innate recuperative powers. So I think when I see things going wrong in people's health, it always comes down to people not recognizing that there is a universal intelligence in all matter, that there is an innate intelligence that really is driving all healing. There's an innate intelligence that is driving my survival. And you know what? In chiropractic, we call it innate intelligence. In Eastern medicine, it's called the chi or the ka, and I could get into I get into Egyptian translations, but when you do look at holistic and Eastern and chiropractic medicine and integrative medicine to a certain degree, it always comes down to recognizing that the body was designed to be healthy and well, that we're wired to be healthy and well, that if I cut my finger, it begins to heal before I even realize that it's cut. If I put my hand on a hot stove, I have a reflex that pulls my hand away from that hot stove before I'm even aware of it happening. If I go into a room that's filled up with more carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide than there should be, my body starts triggering a cough before I'm even consciously that it's aware. And when I see people's health go downhill, there is typically some separation from that innate understanding that the body was designed to be healthy, and we fall into a model of believing that our health is strictly a matter of accident or a factor of being lucky with who your grandparents are, that it's a factor of chance or a factor of your genetics. And once we fall into that and we start believing that we don't have, I don't want to use the word control, but that we don't have the innate ability to be well, that's how we get trapped into the world of modern medicine. I think if there's one area where Western medicine has really, really hurt the most, it's that separation from the underlying principle that the body is designed to be self-healing and well on its own. I mean, that's what I consider to be vitalism. Vitalism recognizes that the body is not just individual parts that are somehow glued together. It says we should be able to measure every single cell in the body, figure out how they're glued together, figure out how they work, and that the body is pretty much this sum of individual cells, sum of individual parts. Vitalism is what recognizes that the body is much greater than the sum of its parts, or that the whole is much greater than the sum of its parts. And I have always seen that when people can become anchored in that philosophy, then when they're faced with a health problem or health challenge, they can always go back to that principle, and they can seek out science and art forms that are aligned with that principle. And that really is the principle that has guided chiropractic. It's the principle that has guided much of Eastern medicine, and it's the principle today that is guiding much of integrative and what we call functional medicine as well. So to me, ultimately, it comes down to a recognition of the philosophy more so than any one lifestyle practice.
Yeah, I just love that you said that so much, because you see this in your family and your friends that their bodies are breaking down, or they get cancer, diabetes, and a lot of people think, why me? Why did I get this? It must be my genetics, or my dad had it, or my mother had it. But it's really the choices people make, their diet, their intake of sugar. They're driving themselves into the ground and not sleeping enough, or over exercising, or the exposure to toxins and not being aware of what we're putting on our body and in our body. And we do have so much control in preventing disease.
And if you're not getting well, you keep asking why. So if something is going wrong in my health or my life, I keep going back to that question of, what's interfering with my innate ability to heal. If I can figure out what the interference is, and if I can remove the interference, I'm grounded in a principle that my body is designed to heal.
Yeah. And be careful about that revolving door at your physician's office, going from conventional doctor to conventional doctor to conventional doctor, because you're only going to get drugs and surgery. You're not going to get solutions to the underlying causes of your health issues that are going to resolve the issue. I personally believe modern medicine is designed to keep you sick and designed to keep you buying drugs and getting surgery and whatnot. But we need medications and surgery. We absolutely do.
Well, here's the deal. I live in Ontario, Canada, which is more or less socialized medicine up here. It's not exactly the same as Obamacare. It really is a government-funded system for people that are having everyday doctor's visits. Now, people that are doing anything that is preventative is outside of what our government healthcare system would look after. So, I don't get a rebate on my tax return because I buy organic food. My reimbursement to the gym, or two gyms, I guess. Now we all need a CrossFit gym and a regular gym, I guess. So I don't get a reimbursement for those things. When I see a structural integration therapist or when I go to a physiotherapist, I mean, the government doesn't pay for those things. However, the government does pay for those everyday doctor's visits, and the government does pay for emergency surgeries and other forms of surgeries, even if they're not emergency surgeries. Listen, if I am in a car accident tomorrow, I am grateful that I actually do live in a socialized medicine system where if I smash my face through a windshield, God forbid, or if I have a broken leg, that I will be taken care of. I do think it's a little upside down and backwards, though, that our society in Canada is paying for late-term lifestyle interventions, which are scooters and medications and surgeries that could have been prevented with better lifestyle. But unfortunately, to not be a victim of that system, even though the government pays for it, you must have made choices earlier in your life that you have to pay for yourself.
Yes.
So there's a major, major problem there. However, when it comes to the everyday doctor's visit, I had a really, really, he was a good friend of my father. And he lived 2 doors down. I mean, my dad was a chiropractor, and we lived beside 2 medical doctors, And the one, he told my dad years ago, he said, Cliff, because I'm paid by the government to see somebody for basically 12 to 15 minutes, he says, if somebody comes into me and they're stressed or they're not eating right or they need to change their lifestyle or they need to exercise, and they need somebody more than just saying start exercising, but showing them how to exercise or showing them the right foods to eat and getting into all this stuff. He said, listen, if I take that time with my patients, I can't earn a living because I get paid for a single doctor's office visit. And he said to my father, pretty much the only thing I can do in a 12 or 15-minute doctor's visit is write a prescription and suggest that the person eats better or exercises. So he actually picked up and left, and he started working in a private clinic. He moved down to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where people would pay him by the hour more for health coaching. There was just a big discussion at the level of the World Health Organization that the role of the health coach used to be frowned upon, but actually the role of the health coach, people that might not even have a license to be a healthcare provider, that's more important than ever before, because the system today is only letting the healthcare provider really do nothing other than provide, right? That it is the information gap that people need. However, if there's a healthcare provider who really, really wants to serve as somebody's health coach and health liaison, it's probably not going to be achieved in a conventional system. And I think there's great people in the medical world, and a lot of them feel really, really stuck. They feel handcuffed and they wish they could help people more. But even in Canada, we're starting to see private clinics show up. So I could certainly go get my physical done every year if I wanted to do that and get it for free. Or I can go over to a private clinic and pay somebody $350. Free versus $350, there's a major, major gap there. We're seeing more and more people opt for the private clinic, even though this is something that would be paid for by the government, because they know they're going to have a higher level of service and they're valuing their health much greater long term. So, I'm not a politician. I'm here just to encourage people what they should do. But we'll hit the politics on this within my lifetime, because I do think there's a better way to help people that are driven by this philosophy more so than the run of the mill.
But, bottom line, we need our doctors, we need our health coaches, and we need to detox. We need it all.
Doctors and detox, you got it.
Well, why don't you tell the listeners where they can find you, learn more about you, and download your free detox ebook?
Sure. I promise I'm the only Dr. BJ Hardick online. There's a few imposters out there, but it is just Dr. Hardick. So Dr. Hardick, which is HARDICK.com. Real Detox is all over the website. And I hope when this airs that they can actually jump on and get a 7-day cleanse as well. I'm really excited. I think it's the smartest cleanse. I mean, I wouldn't develop something new if there was something better already, but I felt there was such a need for a 7-day cleanse. So that's on the website now, with a lot of other articles related to toxicity, and then of course the Real Detox ebook. And listen, I will say this about the recipes: I am very proud of the recipes that we keep on my website, and they all work, and the pictures, they're all the real thing. So sometimes somebody does a recipe, and they're making it with almond flour, and it doesn't really come out quite like the picture that they see, and they have a picture of what they saw on Pinterest, and then they have a picture of their own healthy version of the recipe, and there was a big hashtag fail.
Yeah.
No, listen, our recipes on my site, they're largely, because I'm grain free, I would say 99% of the recipes on my site, they're grain free, sugar free, which means they're gluten free. They follow very much a ketogenic path, but still a high plant base as well. So a ton that are vegan and vegetarian. And they're all real pictures of the real recipes, and they're delicious, and we love them. It's kind of a combination between the snack recipes that I think people enjoy, but then also the more glamorous meals too. Because when you invite people over for a company, you want to wow people. You want to have a good old time too. So there's tons of detox info on drhardick.com. I am really continually, though, more and more pleased with the recipes that we have on there. So people are invited to check them out, and then jump on the Detox Project, which I guess when this airs, it's starting in a week and a half. I mean, the speakers really, really are tremendous. They're representing a broad base of healthcare, and people will learn a lot. It really tells a whole story of how we've gotten so sick, but then also what we can do about it.
And so, what are the dates of the Detox Project?
September 26th until October 3rd.
Fantastic. And I'm definitely going to tune into that. Very, very, very important information. It's exact info I talk about on this podcast. Highly recommend you check it out if you're just, can't get enough info on detox. And BJ, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you. And thanks for all the work that you do. I just can't thank you enough.
Yeah. And everyone, if you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website, live to110.com. Not going to happen unless you detox. You can also check out my detox program called mineralpower.com, where I help you and free you from fatigue and brain fog. Thank you so much for joining the Live to 110 podcast.